And the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has recently made an announcement to offer free registration for persons living with disability who intend to sit for the 2024-2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. Furthering their commitment to inclusivity, the JAMB Registrar, Ishak also revealed that JAMB will also furnish audiobooks in popular audio formats for blind candidates. This effort is set to revolutionize the examination experience, providing a level playing field for all candidates, irrespective of their physical challenges. Apart from the blind candidates, other groups to benefit from the free registration according to the examination body are people with Down syndrome, autism, dyslexia disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. JAMB has also said it is aware of the challenges faced by applicants, especially in connection with their NIN verification and linkage, and pledged swift intervention. But joining us in the studio is the Registrar, Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Professor Ishak Oluyede. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And in our Abuja studio, we have the former VC, IBB University, Lapai, Professor Nasiruddin Meiturare. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
And via Zoom from Calabar is former Minister of Sports and Special Duties, Professor Tauheed Adedoja. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for welcoming. Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Right, let's come back to the studio now and begin with you, Professor Oluyede. This move to ensure inclusivity, let's talk to us about it, how the board, talking about JAMB now, decided to ensure some level of inclusivity for persons living with disability. We know that the country has been pushing for that, but JAMB seems to be taking it a step further.
Thank you very much. Yes, JAMB takes the credit, but frankly speaking, it's a credit that should go to many Nigerians under the leadership of Professor Peter Okebukola. What JAMB did was to set up a committee called JAMB Equal Opportunity Group, comprising Professor Okebukola as chairman, then Professor Adedoja, Professor Meturare, many of them from across the country, including former ministers of education, and they had the mandate, and specialists from polytechnics, colleges of education, and they are to look into how to expand inclusivity, or particularly with emphasis on people living with different kinds of disability. And this year, that had been on for the past, since 2017, and this group attends to the needs of the people. They manage their questions, they manage their scoring, they manage how they are admitted, what percentage, how many of them are admitted, and so on every year, and they advise JAMB. But this year they went further to organize a conference, an encounter, if you can like to call it so, an encounter among people living with disabilities through their representatives, all kinds of disabilities, albino, people with small bodies, the blind, the deaf, those living on wheelchair, and so on. Among those people, the former present Minister of Education and former Ministers of Education, the Vice Chancellors, Rectors, and Provosts, and Administrators of various tertiary institutions. So now we call it an encounter, because, including JAMB, of course, because we provided the resources. So came up, and during the encounter, we were able to see what the government could do to ease the burden of people living with disabilities. A lot of recommendations were made. And apart from that, they came up with a 5-year development program, a strategy that would expand and increase the inclusivity of people living with disability in tertiary institutions. They went further to say it's not just about admission. How do you retain them? What of the sources? Even after they had graduated, how many of them are employed? They look at this, and one thing that impressed me about it is that they were able to ask the people who are concerned to make recommendations which were considered. And one of the recommendations was that for whatever reason, we found out that disability is related to economic deprivation for whatever reason. Most of those who are physically deprived one way or the other, they are by accident or by design. I don't know. I don't think it's by design. Most of them are also deprived economically. Maybe because they are disabled, they couldn't compete with others. So they now came up with, let us gradually make sure that we ease their difficulty. And one of the things to be done is those of them who have the required qualification, those who already have 5 credits, let us see how we can pay. We believe that 6,000, 5,000 that they pay is nothing, but the committee finds out that that could help and increase those people, those of them, because some of them are not applying because of economic reasons. So they then brought this, and we brought that up to say, okay, JAMB will pay. In the last 4 years, we have only been paying for accommodation, feeding, transportation of the blind and other disabled persons living with disability, except the deaf, because the deaf, they are mainstream. They don't need special
so there was a special budgetary allocation by the board for these persons?
For these centers.
Okay.
So that's what we do. Okay. And this year, what we are saying is that we are starting with the deaf, we are starting with the blind, and all others, because we were not aware of some problems. We were aware of disabilities, but some obstacles that we didn't foresee. Right. The National Commission for People Living with Disability came up and said, look, you are going to run into A, B, C, D problem unless you do D, E, F. And we got that because they are, and that's why it's good to always listen to those who are conversant with an issue, not just somebody who go by the roadside who is making just uninformed contribution to the matter. So we appreciate that. Okay. And that's what we are doing this year.
Okay, Prof, we'll get back to the engagements that you're having. You just raised the crucial point of, talks with the Commission for Disabilities, but let's compare some of the things you have said with our guests, other profs who are joining us online. Professor Meturare, for example, we understand that you are also a member of this JAMB Equal Opportunities Group, and you would also be in a good position to tell us the perspective from the northern zone where we understand you represent. So with this opportunity that JAMB is offering persons living with disabilities, especially in the purchase, in this registration for JAMB this year, tell us how much difference it would make for the constituents you represent.
Thank you very much. I am the coordinator for the JOS Center, which is based at University of Jos. But permit me to start by appreciating the humility of the JAMB Registrar, Professor Isaac Oloyede, for giving the credit to JOG. Actually, the credit goes to Professor Isaac Oloyede, no doubt about it. The extent that he has gone to support candidates with disabilities is unprecedented in Nigeria, and JOG is his creation. And like you mentioned about the free registration, yes, free registration for JAMB is one of the measures that JAMB has unfolded, to support candidates with disabilities. But I must emphasize that the extent of support being provided to candidates, during their exams and after, is quite formidable. JAMB spends quite, a lot of money. In fact, in the hundreds of thousands, in providing conducive, atmosphere for the candidates to write their exams, providing, suitable accommodation, providing assistive devices, slates, braille, for them to write the exams, in a very, very conducive, environment. And that has helped greatly. The students themselves, had expressed, a lot of, appreciation, and their parents. In fact, many of them could not believe the level of support, that JAMB provides for their candidates. And that has, tremendously improved on their performance. In the center that I have been, coordinating for the past 3 years, that is the JOS Center, none of the students has failed. In fact, all the students passed excellently, because of the level of support, that is being provided by JAMB. In fact, the support goes beyond, the conduct of the examination. We remain in touch with the candidates. Even after the examination, we follow up on their progress, and where they have difficulties, we attend to them. In fact, just last 2 weeks or so, one of the candidates called me. He had a challenge, with his cane, and that created some level of difficulty for him, and we addressed it. So what I'm saying is that the level of support network that JOG has provided to these candidates, is quite formidable, and I think the credit really should go to Professor Ishaq Oloide. And I want to emphasize that when it comes to providing support for these candidates, we know him as, a champion of prudence. But when it comes to supporting the candidates with disabilities, he sets no limit. Whatever amount is required to support them, whether with devices or with providing an enabling environment, he ensures that, the cost, or shall I say, the costs are met by JAMB. So it's been really a tremendous help, to the candidates, and it has led, to their successes in admission, first in passing the examination, and also in getting admitted into the various universities and other tertiary institutions in the country.
All right. It's a commendable framework being put in place by the board, as well as the efforts being. We must also commend your effort as well to ensuring that this is successful. But let's quickly move over now to Professor Adedoja. Let's compare notes from his part, looking at the South. What the kinds of response that you were getting with this initiative now that we're seeing that JAMB is saying, come register. What is the response you're getting from these persons, especially the number of persons that are taking advantage of this opportunity so far?
Yeah. First of all, let me thank you for this program. The action so far taken by JAMB, championed by the registrar of the organization, Professor Oloide, and also making it possible practically by Professor Peter Okebukola, who happens to be the chairman of the Joint Equal Opportunity Group put up by JAMB. One of the major achievements is that it has created positive self-image for all persons with disabilities in this country, that if non-disabled persons can do it, they can do it, and most of the time even do it better. They can do it better because they have been given the opportunities that were not there in the years past. In the last 7 years, JAMB has conducted examinations in various centers all over the country to provide opportunities, particularly for blind persons, later in joining other disabilities, to provide opportunities for them to sit for the JAMB examination, which gives them access, equal access to higher education in this country, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. Without it, they would not have had that opportunity to do so. In the last 3, 4, 5 years, if we count the statistics of number of persons with disabilities that have gained admission into universities in this country, is well over 30% of those that start for the examination. And I think that is very, very commendable. For the fact that we care for other persons that are not disabled, this level of care by JAMB to provide access to quality education, for higher education for persons with disabilities in this country, I think should be commendable. And it also interests you to note that the membership of JAMB drawn across all over the country, former chief executives, current chief executives, those that have held public offices in this country are part of this process. And they had meetings almost every 2 weeks on voluntary basis. And I think this is commendable. But what is most important is that persons with disabilities in Nigeria have a hope for the future. Persons with disabilities in this country have a hope to be part of the socio-economic development of this country. They can come out to beat their chests that if you, that's not blind, can be a teacher, I can be a teacher. I can be a scientist. I can be an engineer. I can be a medical doctor. That's most important. That positive self-image that this exercise has created for persons with disability is sufficient enough to say that JAMB should be commended by all over. And of course, JAMB has been receiving the recommendation that it receives, in line with our able chairman, Professor Peter Okoye, who is leading us, who is leading Nigeria, who is leading JAMB's vision in providing these opportunities for persons with disabilities in this country. Thank you.
All right. Back to the studio, Profs. So it's been commendation so far for this, is it 7-year-old now? This 7-year-old work that you have been doing, particularly to ease the plight of PWDs. But moving on, there's also calls that, on exam day, what facilities has JAMB provided, this time around that you are upping the ante, so to speak. What disability-friendly provisions have you made? And even beyond that, you said something about retention, that is not just admission you are interested in, but retaining these persons living with disabilities in their preferred institutions.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
right.
Even when the examinations are conducted.
All right, Professor Adedoja, please, before we get your response, let's just quickly, get Prof. Foloyede's response to that.
Yes.
And then we come to you. Thank you.
What we do is, in terms of infrastructure, what GEOG does on behalf of JAMB is to devise the methodology, the tools that will ease every candidate, living with disabilities needs, not one size fits all. For those who are going to our general CBT centers, 750, more than that now, across the country, what we have done is to, particularly those living on wheelchairs, they don't need to come to Lagos or go to Benin, the 11th center for the disabled. No, we just mainstream them. When you are registering, you say, oh, I'm on wheelchair. We post you to a CBT center that has the facilities that for people sitting on wheelchairs. So you don't need to suffer anything. And the center is aware of your date of examination and time. And the Joint Equal Opportunity Group is also notified. So a member living around there will also be there on ground to facilitate if somebody is suffering from impairment, for example, we don't need a special center for him. What we need is we mainstream them, because their own need is not written, it's not physical. You will not even know when you see a beautiful lady or an handsome man with you, you wouldn't not be aware that he's hearing impaired. So these people, what we have done for in their own case is just that we have given instruction to every proctor. Every proctor is the person supervising e-examination. Every proctor knows that you cannot give oral instruction. You can't go and be verbally explaining anything. First, it must be written, so as to accommodate. You don't ask people, are there people who are deaf here? The rule is that 2-3 minutes before the commencement of every examination, the instructions will be on the screen for everybody to read. So that takes care of people living with disability without stigmatizing them or having to identify them, that their needs are met. But those who are in need of special facilities, they go to 11 centers that we have designated. Apart from FCT, we have 5 in the north and 5 in the south. In the south, for instance, you have Oyo Town, because we are taking advantage of Federal College of Education special, set up by the federal government for that purpose. So you have Oyo there for them. Then you have Ado Ekiti. Then you have Lagos. You have Benin. And there is also one that I can't remember now, in the Enugu. These are 5 in the southwest, where they are sponsored to go. We pay for the candidate, we pay for the accompanying person who must accompany, we accommodate them, and we make sure we facilitate the special needs. Some they will have to dictate to them. Some need magnified glasses, some need just time. Instead of writing the exam, the CBT exam in 2 hours, those with Down syndrome, they may take 6 hours. They may take, they are using different facilities, some with CBT. It is designed for the specific needs of these people. We can't just group them together and say, go. In the north, for instance, we have Yola, you have Jos, you have Kano, you have Kebbi, and one other place.
So that's why this registration period is important to
yes,
get the details of all.
Yes, during the registration, they can go to any of the 750 centers. Because initially we felt they should go, but the cost of transportation, somebody living in rural, that's why we say, look, go to any of our 775 centers. In some cases, you will not be able to identify them properly. Once they register, so far, the statistics yesterday is that throughout the country, we just have about 225 of them who had registered so far in the last 10 days. Not all the people who are living with disability. We are talking of people who are living with disability but already have 5 credits. Not somebody who is awaiting result because you don't know whether it will pass or it will fail. We are talking of those who already have the prima facie qualification. That is, they are qualified to be admitted. These are the people we are talking about. Of 225 of them so far from across the country. And these are the people that we are, the commission, National Commission for People Living with Disability wrote to us last week to say, yes, a good thing you are doing, but these are the problems. And we have started to see some of the problems. Somebody said, I'm deaf. And someone said, no, when we were coming in the vehicle, you were speaking. And we were speaking. You were not deaf. So before we saw that practical example, the commission had called our attention to the fact that let them collect certificate from commission that they are disabled.
Right.
Because when you go to UK, you don't park your vehicle somewhere and they say, why? You say, because you are disabled. You must have the badge of a disability before you can take advantage of this we didn't put into consideration, but they are coming up. And as they are coming up, we are also addressing the situation. We are correcting some of our flaws, and we immediately pass it to Professor Okebukola Group. This is the problem we have. How do we? And they will quickly meet. They meet largely by Zoom, meet online, and they will come and they will give us suggestions. We don't need to bother our brain. We are not diverted from our primary purpose, and we thank these people. Pro bono, they offer this, and they are passionate about it. But some people, some Nigerians, I've heard the rumor that I had a person living with disability. That's why it's not true. So far, none of my children or grandchildren is living with disability. But I happen to be the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin for 5 years. And during this period, I had to manage the federal government Center for Supportive Services for the Deaf.
Right.
So, and it's a center that opened my eyes widely to see what people are suffering and what government can do. JAMB is a government agency. So you cannot say government is not doing anything because government has set up these facilities for that purpose. It is when people in charge are not doing what they are supposed to do, that people think government is not doing. Agencies are set up to assist the government to in delivering services to the people. But unfortunately, in some cases, we lose the focus. We do not know that you will be held responsible for the assignment given to you.
Absolutely.
And therefore, it is your duty to now go after. We could be lamenting, where do we get money? How do I pay Professor Okebukola? You are talking of Professor Adedoja now. You are seeing him, you are calling him former minister for sports. I don't see him as such. I see him as a professor of special education who had been the provost for 10 years, Federal College of Education, Oyo. People had forgotten that about him. Right. What they know about him is minister thing, which to us, yes, it's good to be minister, but that's not the issue. Or you would see Rukaya Ahmed. People don't know that she's a professor who had activated, who was a forerunner in passing disability policy when she was Minister of Education. They say Minister of Education. We are not seeing her as Minister of Education. Right. We are seeing her as an expert. Well, Peter Okebukola, people will just see Peter Okebukola and they see him as a professor of last week. We have forgotten that he had for 5 years, once upon a time, he was ES of National Universities Commission. So this is how we brought these people together. Or look at Jake Ekpele. Ekpele had been on this struggle for more than 40 years. Right. Since I know him, he had been struggling from the albino people and then expanding the thing. So we look for these people and we brought them together. And the current leadership of the blind, the deaf, the people living with them, they are also part of that committee of theirs. So they would then look at all the problems. They call the people, this is what we want to do. Oh, don't do it like that. Do it this way. Mend it this way. So what comes to JAMB for implementation is fine product. I told you about the encounter they organized this year. Some of the outcome of that is that every tertiary institution now have center supportive unit for people living with disability. So that they have given us the data that Lagos State University, I can now open my data and say in Lagos State University, there are social persons who are living with disability there. This is the number of deaf, this is the number of blind, this is the number of people living with wheelchair. And the implication of that is that the Student Affairs Office or Center of the Supportive Unit has that detail. When there is fire in the hostel, there are people dedicated to rush to where people who are on wheelchair which hitherto we were not catering for. So it was done in the encounter that one lady from University of Nigeria said there was fire in the hostel one day and everybody ran away. Leaving her alone, that she had to be struggling. It took time before somebody could remember that she was there. So we said, oh, she could have been burnt. Yeah. And with that, we were able to. And during the encounter, we also had some Nigerians. Somebody said, look, I've been using these wheelchairs for some years, and it has a problem. And somebody stood up and said, how much is this? 100,000. And that person went and brought 10. So there and then. 10 out of his money. And people started contributing to the issue of wheelchair. Now we have more than 25 million in that post. And we have now set up a committee under the Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Technology, Akure, to now look at what can you do with this money for people who are already admitted into tertiary institutions. You can't use it for those in primary or in secondary. Because our focus of JAMB is the colleges of education, the polytechnics, and the universities and IES. We are not, we will say, oh, we have received so many people say, somebody is living in my area, he needed this.
So it's basically encouraging other bodies
to
do same.
Yes, what concerns an Agbiru with overload. So Agbiru is just to put something. So for us, we are focusing on the mandate given to us. And apart from that, this issue of audio book is for the blind. So that we are not, instead of having to read to them, we are now having automated auto book, that all the books are being converted into
And
voice.
I know there's a lot that
Yes, thank
you
you.
have to say, but let's quickly, get the perspective of Professor Meturari now with regards to some of the things that you have mentioned here in the studio, talking about tightening the news to ensure that persons who claim they are disabled and are not do not take advantage of this system, and also the improvements we are looking forward to as being a member of the JAMB Equal Opportunity Group.
Thank you very much. For candidates who write their examination at the JOC centers, the ease of difficulty begins even before the exam, like the registrar did say. Of course, the spread of the centers is done in such a way that candidates will have minimum difficulty in getting to the centers that they choose to write the exam in. And I think it should also be emphasized here that the registrar had made it such that even if there are just a few candidates in those centers, JAMB will still go ahead and finance, the operation of such centers. And I think that's really very significant. Now, for our candidates on the date of the exam, beyond the ambience and the enabling environment, like I mentioned earlier, now everything the candidates need, to ease their difficulty, during the, writing that exam, are provided by JAMB. Of course, those who need braille machines, those who need, typewriters, those who need even computers, are all provided in order to ensure that, they write that exam in the best manner possible that is suitable to them. And I also want to add that beyond the, the administration of the exam, JAMB ensures that there is medical, provision, at the venue of each center, in case any of the candidates fall sick. And it has happened on a number of occasions, and of course it was handled immediately. And beyond the day-to-day, or shall I say the annual conduct of the exam, JAMB has also ensured that the mode in which the candidates write the exams currently is the proctor-driven read aloud. This year, there's going to be the provision, for those who wish to write in Braille, and the whole idea that in subsequent years there will be a multimodal form in whichever manner or form, a candidate with disability desires to write his or her examination. JAMB was ready to provide, such facilities for the candidates. And I also want to, emphasize the fact that the free registration that was mentioned earlier, the JAMB Registrar has already approved, that there's going to be a nationwide awareness campaign across all, these, regions of the country to ensure that candidates are well informed, about this facility, and also about other issues, that has to do with, facilitating the examination, for candidates, with disability. There are quite a number of, measures that the JAMB through this registrar have taken. Maybe people may not be aware. The JAMB provides scholarships, to candidates, to candidates with disabilities. It has become the champion for their, for advocating for their well-being in the various institutions. Like he rightly mentioned, the just concluded national conference came out with a number of landmark resolutions, that will impact positively, the issue of access, of people living with disabilities to higher education in Nigeria. Of course, he has mentioned the disability support office that is now, a feature, in every tertiary institution to ensure that candidates with with special abilities, are monitored, their issues, are handled, and that they have a place, to run to whenever they have any issues. Now, this, like I said, had been unprecedented, and it's really, really given a sense of hope, and inspiration, to the blind candidates. It started with just administering the examination, but it has gradually transformed, into something that is very formidable that goes beyond that, to, ensuring that going further, the candidates or students living with disabilities in Nigeria will have the best opportunity ever, to access quality higher education in Nigeria.
Okay, let's quickly come over to Professor Adedoja. Thanks so much for holding on, Prof. So, considering the challenges that stakeholders have been complaining about regarding the implementation of the Disability Act of 2018, talk to us about, from your perspective, how this GEORGE initiative that you and, several other academics and other stakeholders are pushing for, how this initiative could be a game changer in this whole course for more inclusion for these persons with special needs.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly enough, even before the signing of the Persons with Disability Access Act by the federal government, JAMB had already gone ahead. JAMB had foreseen the future of this country in terms of providing access for quality education for persons with disability. And if you look at what is happening, just like my colleague, Professor Metuari said, JAMB is not just looking at conducting examination for persons with disability just with one mode. It's looking at the individualized examination program for various kinds of disability, using the Braille option, the reading mode option, including computer-based option to provide examination for blind persons. One of the reasons or outcome of this initiative by JAMB, like I said, is that it is creating better awareness. Conducting examination for blind persons is not just about blind persons themselves. It's also increasing the awareness of Nigerians that disadvantaged persons in this country, like persons with disability, can make it like you and others that are not.
All right.
The National Commission for Persons with Disability that took off 2 years ago is now liaising with JAMB, not just as an examination body, but as a body that is responsible for providing access for quality education for persons with disability in this country.
All right, Professor Adedoja,
Creating 11 centers.
We need to quickly begin to wrap up now.
Yeah, thank you. Creating 11 centers for them to have access for this, I think should be more encouraged by the federal government.
Right. Quickly, as we wrap up this conversation, Professor Oloyede, a viewer is asking that about the mock centers, saying that there aren't enough in Abuja. Why are you asking students to go to Lokoja to write mock exams as against having them?
You see, thank you. Nigerians, we hope you will have people who will satisfy you. Mock exam was introduced to provide exercise for people who want to try their hands. And for us, is to test our system, to make sure we run the system. It's not to create another examination. We told you when we were starting on the 18th of January, on the 8th of, on the 15th of January, that look, it's on first come, first serve purpose. We have only 147,000 people to write this, and they are distributed across the country. If you register on time, then the spaces in Abuja you will be yours. And you are seeing how dangerous our people are. You're saying, why are you asking you to go to Kaduna? Who asked you to go to Kaduna? We say if Abuja is filled, don't write mock, because mock is not essential. You are just yourself who decide on your own that there is a space in Kaduna. And this is how they carry wrong information. That JAMB has posted my child to Lokoja. No, we are saying the time. But what we have done yesterday, because the pressure was too much on me.
And and
we now decided to double it. I'm appealing to my staff, the staff of JAMB, and all other ad hoc members that instead of having one session of mock, we are now having 2 sessions.
Will you address the technical problems?
Yes, it will have their problem. What it means is that instead of testing our Once we
have to
test our
thank you now.
system 1
We have to
hour,
thank
it's
you now.
enough, but we are doing it twice on the day
All right.
of the month. Thank you.
Registrar, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Professor Ishak Oluede, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
And in our Abuja studio, we had former VC IBB University Lapai, Professor Nasiruddin Maiturare, and from Calabar, former Minister of Sports and Special Duties, Professor Tauhid Adedoja. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on the program. Well, to quickly talk sports now, it's cheering news for Nigerian sports lovers as Super Eagles Ademola Lookman's brace against